So I am going to jump right in because this is going to be one of the tougher situations that I'm going to be talking about that happened in my life that made a big impact, but in some cases is a little embarrassing. I'm going to talk about getting over a specific type of addiction that I had when I was younger and what it taught me. So today I'm going to be talking about how one of the biggest life hurdles became a huge asset for me a little later. And I'm talking about this is my gambling addiction story. And I realized I can talk about this okay when I'm meeting casually with people who I start to know. But as I get to know you guys, my audience, I want to open up a little more about some of the challenges I've had in life that in some cases may be embarrassing. But these are stories that even a lot of my relatives don't know because I don't tell them about it. But I do tell this story to a lot of the people I've mentored. For some reason, if they're younger, I don't have any prejudgment passed on, mostly because a lot of them have never encountered stuff like this. But in the past, I've actually done a speech about this when I was doing Toastmasters. And it was one of those things that I was just trying to get better at public speaking. Didn't know that it would be used probably for YouTube video creation, but I did know that communication skills help a lot with promotions, understanding people, and basic everyday life. Being able to be a better communicator is always a better thing to improve on because it does help in almost every aspect of life. I can't think of when being a poor communicator is ever helpful. So this is going to be actually a story on back when my gambling started in high school. And I was back in the late 80s. I actually was one of the few kids in school that actually carried around a pager because then I could keep in contact with my friends that actually had bookie connections. And this is in Hawaii where it's completely illegal to gamble, but gambling runs rampant. And you can find someone to place bets on for sports of any type, practically baseball, college football, college baseball, college basketball, pro basketball, any type of sport you can pretty much find a place to place a bet in. And it's a big pastime that a lot of people get into. So for me, I love playing cards. And this was like almost every night. In fact, we would play so often during some of my late high school years that right after work, a lot of us worked retail. Then we would go to a friend's house. We would all sit there. And while we're playing poker for money, we would then also be studying what games were going to be on this weekend. College football, NFL football, pro, anything basketball, whatever season was on, we would be looking at certain stats and we would be looking into what bets we want to place for the week. And a lot of times the guys who were there were those taking the bets for us. And we would collaborate on it because no one's competing against each other. Everybody was actually putting it money against one house. And then when the week was up, the weekend is over, everybody either paid or got paid. And that's a weekly cycle that we went through. Now, as time had gone on, as what typically happens with gambling addiction, your need for bigger bets is the only way to get that endorphin rush, to get that, to make it fun or keep it going. And of course, with the constant gambling of even poker going on all the time, it was nonstop. In fact, I was going to college later after graduation from high school. We continued to play, working, going to college. And there's been times when I was playing poker all the way up until 4 or 5 in the morning, and I would be going home in rush hour traffic. And that's morning rush hour traffic. It's crazy. So that's how bad it got. We were doing it all the time. And there was finally one weekend where I finally absolutely got hammered. Not drunk hammered, but actually betting hammered, where I lost a ton. And it put me into a spiral where I couldn't pay it. And I was very afraid of the person who put the bet in for me, which is a friend of mine, getting hurt because he couldn't cover my bet, which I should never have put it in the first place. One of those things, you just didn't think I didn't think I was going to lose. I would think if you do lose, you lose half your bets, and then the other half would probably do it. There's always going to be a balance. But one weekend, put in enough bets that everything lost. Couldn't believe it. And then it just went into a position where I had to embarrass myself and actually ask my mother for money and to help me cover this debt. And she didn't have the money, so she actually took out a loan with me as a co-signer and helped me to go ahead and get this debt paid off. So I paid off the debt and then stopped gambling completely so that all I could do at this point was just continue to work through my debt being paid off. And it took years to pay off that debt. It wasn't that big, but back then minimum wage was, I think, $5 an hour, maybe 4.50, and I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was going to college. So it was one of those things that I never graduated from college, but I did actually learn a lot. So here's the turnaround of this story. What I learned during this season was that I was a really good analyst. Now, I did lose at one time, and that was just a fluke thing. Every bad thing that could happen that's unforeseen happened. Statistically, should not have actually happened, but it did. It was a great lesson. Maybe it was meant to be. But along the way, there was a lot of weekends I was winning a lot. And it dealt with figuring out patterns. And I realized how good I was at this, watching historical data patterns, reading up on the news, and it became a challenge, not so much even to win money, but to see if I was just right, if my theories were right, if things were going out. And that actually made me become a really good analyst. So my last few jobs, I was called either a data analyst or marketing analyst. I don't know any which way you want to look at it, but I was really good at analyzing data and seeing what the story was being told with the data that was in front of me. That was actually a huge asset for me. And I also realized that when I started to learn about stocks, you can pretty much find the same type of patterns and certain things to get ahead. But stocks is a different, it's just honestly stock market investing. If you're doing it on and off, constantly in and out kind of thing, I think it's legalized gambling is what it really is, because there is no way to control it as well. But you get the same rush when your stock does well. So if you're doing day trading, it's like a gambling feel that goes into doing the same type of analysis, seeing if you're going to win or not. So I stay away from actually that. I do invest in the stock market. I invest in index funds because statistically that has beaten everything else. And my analytical mind says that's the best place to put your money. And that's where I do. Now, today, do I gamble? Yes. When I gamble, though, it's a different kind of feeling. I go to Vegas and I only do it with a small budget, and I don't get the same endorphin rush that I used to get as far as the highs and the lows. What I do is I use that money as a form of entertainment expense. Now, if I double it, I stop. And if I lose it all, no big deal. But I did find out that the reason I don't like gambling in Vegas and why I only do it by basically entertain myself when others are with me that are doing it is because when I don't have control and there is no real story you can tell from that type of gambling like roulette, blackjack, even most of the table games, craps, it's really just luck. Statistically, yes, you're going to lose just based on the way that is also. It's just set up so that you're not going to potentially walk away winning. Otherwise, the casinos would not be around. But you can potentially play games which gives you enough odds that if you're a little lucky, then you will actually come out ahead. But of course with limitations. So it's not that I don't gamble anymore. I do. It's still something I do find fun. But it is something that I stay away from because I know that I can do better making money, investing it, and controlling it myself. Because I can analyze things, I can take risks that are educated, and this is something that has taught me well. And I want to, this whole idea behind today's message is if you've gone through a challenge, what are the positives that come out of that? And that's what I've noticed, that I look back at that gambling time as a time where I refined a lot of my analytical skills before I even got into analysis. And I realized that's something that I love and I like. And when I start working and doing it and using it, it has been very beneficial for clients, for my bosses who I've worked for, and even for just myself in general. Very satisfying that I have had this ability to do that. Not saying that gambling is going to be something that everybody's going to have that ability to reap out of, but if there has been challenges, there's usually something you can gain out of it, and try digging into that. Don't dwell on something that has been bad, because gambling was really bad for me. It hurt a lot to recover from that debt that I actually incurred from that. But in the end, like I said, I have made, I don't know, thousandfold off of what I lost because of what I was able to gain and figure out what I'm good at. Hope this has been helpful. If it has been, and I've earned your subscription, please hit the subscribe button below. Still trying to grow this channel. If it has actually been something that's been entertaining or that you like, even that little like button below there would be very helpful for you to hit. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.